Hello, welcome to another Black Horizons program. I'm your host, Hamid Rasheed. Men, women, and children of the black community have been residing in Nova Scotia since 1606. It is estimated that some 33,000 blacks make Nova Scotia their home. The Provincial Council of the Black United Front of Nova Scotia has designated April 1982 as Black History Month in the province of Nova Scotia. In today's program, we will talk to James Francois, Project Coordinator for Black History Month, about some of the activities planned for the second annual Black History Month. James, welcome back to the Black Horizons program.
Thank you, Hamid. It's good to be back.
Doesn't seem like a year has passed since I was talking to you last about the first annual Black History.
That's true. Time flies, really.
Program. I wonder if perhaps I could ask you, for the benefit of our viewers who may not be familiar with the Black History Month, if I could have you just explain when and why the idea of having a Black History Month came about.
Well, Black History Month came about sometime last year. I think it was early in January. We were talking at a provincial council meeting, and people were just sort of looking at what is happening in Nova Scotia in general, and the idea came about that we would need to do something in terms of one of the objectives of the organization in making people aware of the culture of black people in this province. We find that a number of the young people in school are not aware of what sort of contribution or the history of their ancestors, and this sort of thing brought to light the fact that something needs to be done about it. So it was thought that we should look at the possibility of coming up with a program to meet that need and solve that problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, when you talk about black culture, many people have expressed the view that blacks in Nova Scotia do not have a unique culture of their own, that the culture of the black community by and large resembles that of the larger community. How would you respond to somebody who would hold that particular view?
Well, there is some truth in that statement or in that attitude. It is true that the black people in Nova Scotia to some extent have adopted the culture of the large white community. This is not to say, however, that the black community of itself does not have a culture which is unique to its own self. When we talk about black culture, we should really be talking in terms of black cultures, really, because if one understands the historical presence of black people in Nova Scotia, then you begin to realize that there is a whole mass of black cultures outside of Nova Scotia from which these black people came, and certainly they must have some of that inherent in their attitude and in their values and in their beliefs. To go a step further, we also have to realize that we have to look to the future, and a number of us would wish that our children and our children's children certainly would have an awareness of the rich cultural heritage of black people, which can be drawn from all parts of the world for that matter. And so that when we talk about black culture, this is the area in which we are looking at, not only at the past, but the direction which we hope to go in the present and in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, now then, could you give us some idea of the nature of activities that are involved in Black History Month?
Well, the nature of the activities can be divided into two broad areas. One area has specifically to do with the young people, like I mentioned before. Specifically is the target group with which we are dealing with at the moment. And we have decided, and this was after discussion with the young people as well, to come up with three main areas of activities. And these areas are a public speaking contest, an essay competition, and a youth parliament. In addition to those, we also hope to have black interaction, which is this year we're going to make it the climax of Black History Month. So that those are the four main activities in which young people would be involved. At the community level, we would hope that and encourage that the black communities would have programs to suit their own specific needs. For example, I know that last year in Inglewood they had their own program, and they had things like the history of black music, and they invited one of us out to talk to them about this. They had other activities, like they invited people in to talk about different aspects of black culture in their community. So we'd hope that individual communities would do similar things in their own special area this year as well.
So then there's two types of activities, one in which the Black United Front is playing a direct sponsorship role,
That is right.
and the other ones you're just encouraging communities generally to organize their own activities to somehow acknowledge the Black History Month.
That is quite correct.
Well, now, in terms of looking at some of the activities that you've mentioned, I wonder if perhaps I could have you explain a little bit about them. The public speaking contest, for example, what is that all about?
Okay, the public speaking contest we hope would run from through the month of April. We are divided the public speaking contest month into two areas. We have, first of all, we have what we call a community contest. That is, each community is allowed to select whatever method they want to do. One individual from each community take part in this contest. If in a contest area, which is equivalent to Buff sector, we have, say for example, Halifax, Dartmouth region, we have 12 communities. And if we have 12 people from 12 communities, then we'll have what we call a sector contest. Now the winner of that sector contest would then go to the finals of the provincial contest, when the winners from the 6 sectors would compete for the finals.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope that the community and the sector finals would take place, the community contest would take place from the first week in April to the 15th of April, and the semi-finals, so to speak, will take place from the 15th of April to the end of April. The finals for the contest, this public speaking contest, would be held during Black Interaction Month, which is slated for the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of May in New Glasgow.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, in terms of the public speaking contest, are the participants restricted to any particular area, or are they given the flexibility to choose their own topics that they want to speak on?
They are restricted only in the sense that the topic which they choose on must directly be related to Nova Scotia and something black culture, black history in Nova Scotia.
Some aspect.
Some aspect of that, yeah.
And of course, there'll be judges and so on of for the contests.
Yes, the contest will be judged on certain points. Like for example, the delivery would be given 30 points for that. We have a built-in system where, you know, sometimes people deliver, they have a very good speech, but the audience perhaps may not like it very well. So what we have done, we have built in that, and for audience response, we'll give 10 points. So if it's up to you to sort of take the audience along with you and get some sort of response from them. So that will be 40 points. And for the relevance of the topic, another 30 points. So the important thing is that one has to remember you get the majority of points for your delivery and the relevance of the topic. Mm-hmm. So if you do yourself out in one of those two areas, even though you have the rest of the points going for you, you can still lose out in the end.
Right. Now, is there any age, will all age groups be participating in the same contest, or will there be divisions in the public speaking contest?
Well, in the public speaking contest, we had hoped to have 2 divisions, but it doesn't look as if we're going to be able to do this. So it's flexible at the moment. If we get people, say, between 12, 13, and 14, who are willing to take part in the contest, we'll say, fine, we'll make that a division. And then 14 up to first year in university would be another division. If the numbers are not so that it doesn't give us that leverage to work with, then we'll have one contest, and well, unfortunately, the junior people may suffer, but that is not necessarily the case.
Right. How did you make out with this particular program in last year's Black History Month?
Last year's Black History Month, Hamid, to be honest with you, I was very pleasantly surprised about the contest and the caliber of the speeches and the delivery and everything. It was just great, just fantastic, and we're really looking forward to this year to make it even better.
Mm-hmm. I understand the finalists for last year's program came from a pretty wide geographical area, covered a pretty wide geographical area of the province, and one of the finalists was from the Weymouth Falls community, one from Kentville, and one from the Guysborough county area.
That is right.
And the young lady from Weymouth, I guess, took the...
She took the first prize, yes.
Right. Well, now, the essay writing competition, what can you tell us about the essay writing competition?
Okay, the essay writing competition is a little different. I think we have a few more rules in this one. In this one, we have 3 categories from 10 to 12 years old, from 13 to 15, and from 16 to 18. Now, in the 10 to 12 year group, we will require an essay about 400 words. In 13 to 15, an essay of 800 words, and the 16 to 18, an essay of approximately 1,000 words. The young people will be judged on the topic which are chosen for them. They're given a list of 8 items to choose from. I think there are 8 in all, and they are permitted to choose whichever one they want and write on that. So they would be judged on the merit of that, and they would also be given cash prizes for the best essay in each of those age categories.
Well, now, is there any deadline for participation in the essay writing competition?
Well, at the moment, the deadline is April the 19th, but in some cases we have sort of pushed it back a little, depending on how well the information or how early the student or young person can show us that they got the information. Now, if somebody got the information this week, then certainly we can give them a week's notice. But for those people who got the information, say, 3 weeks ago, the deadline would be the 19th of April. So we also try to be as flexible as we possibly can, yet want to keep the program running smoothly.
And I understand you say there's the prizes that are given for the best participants in the essay contest?
Yes, there are 3 prizes of cash check would be issued to the 10 to 12 year group. I think the amount there is $50, and the 13 to 15, the amount I think is $65, and the rest, the 16 to 18, I think it's $80.
Well, now, how did you fare last year with this particular one? Did the essay contest go as well as the public speaking contest?
Yes, the essay contest went just as well as the public speaking contest. And the only thing about it, I hope the people of the Valley don't knock me for this, that the 3 winners came from Inglewood community. Two were from Inglewood and 1 from Gibsonwood. So the 3 people came from the Valley, and they just walked away with the 3 essay prizes. I hope this year that we can have a stiffer competition, and that perhaps somebody in the Halifax-Dartmouth region can win at least one of those 3 prizes.
Right. Well, now, how is a winner chosen in the essay writing contest?
We have a panel of judges who read the essays based on the facts of the essay, the composition of it, the English and things like that, and the amount of research that went into coming up with the facts to write the essay. This is done by a group of 3 people, 2 of them being teachers.
Well, now, you talked a bit earlier in the program about the, I think you call it the Black Youth Interaction Program. Could you tell us what's involved in that particular program?
Well, in the Black Interaction, which is going to be taking place in New Glasgow in May, we hope to take about 120 young people from all over the province for a weekend in that town of New Glasgow. The young people we chose from that area would be coming from the people who took part in the Youth Parliament, the essay competition, and the public speaking contest. Those would be given first preference in entering the Black Interaction. And the Black Interaction has 2 purposes. One is to bring the young people together just to socialize, to get to know each other, to mix. And the second point is for them to be able to learn a little bit more of Black history and Black culture in the province. Because one of the things we found, and this was what came out from the young people themselves, is that out of the Black Interaction last year, they indicated to us that they were just amazed of the fact that they were aware at that time that there were other Black communities and other Black young people living so close to them, and they had never had any interaction, no communication going on between them before. And because of last year's interaction, we have had letters being written from kids from Amherst writing to young people in New Glasgow and Tragedy and Monastery. And this is something which is really good, and we think that we will, with this approach, we'll attempt to stop some of the alienation of the young people and bring them closer to each other so that they can really interact and talk to each other about what's going on to them and around their communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'll be spending, as I understand it, a weekend in the Glasgow area. Could you give us an idea of the general idea of the program that they'll be involved in while they're there?
Yes, well, Friday evening, we hope that they will turn up there between, say, 6 or 7 o'clock. We'll have registration. We'll have a little socializing, some sandwich and chat and music and so on, so that they can just talk around, get to know you sort of session. Then Saturday morning, after breakfast, we would have a session dealing with black history and black culture. Then following that, we also would like them to, each young person from a community would be asked to give a profile of their community. And this, incidentally, is one of the items which the young people requested. They'll be asked to give a profile of their community in terms of population, the location relative to other black communities or to Halifax, Dartmouth, so that somebody can know where to find it. What sort of activities go on in that particular community? What are some of the problems in that particular community? And in so doing, they will expose their community so that the others can learn of their community and so forth and so on. So that's one of the things that is going to be going on. Also, we'd have the finals, as I mentioned before, of the public speaking contest would be held the Saturday afternoon. And the winners of the essay competition would have those 3 essays read to the group of 120 young people. So there'll be sort of exposure for those people who have taken part. Also, we hope that the Youth Parliament would present a sort of general brief or summary of what took place at the Youth Parliament, so that we wrap the whole thing up and everybody have an idea what went on during the whole month of April. Saturday night, like everything else, the young people would be having a teen dance, and we hope that they would conduct themselves properly. And Sunday, of course, there will be church service, and then later on in the afternoon, around midday perhaps, we'd have the distribution of the prizes, certificates, and trophies won, and at a banquet, which we hope would be presented to them at that particular time, so that this would be the climax of the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, what about young people who may be listening to the program today who would want to participate in the Black Interaction program? How can they get involved?
Well, they can get involved by calling the office. The number is 425-6340, asking for myself, James Francois, or any of the people in the office can give them some information. Or they can contact their counselors in their various communities. The Buff Council would also have that sort of information. So those are the 2 ways in which they can get in touch with us.
Right. Well, I think there's one other final activity that we haven't talked about, and that's the Black Youth Parliament. Could you explain what's involved with the Parliament?
Well, the Black Youth Parliament last year, I understand, unfortunately I didn't get time to attend that one, but I understand it was very successful as well. And that was when we brought young people from all over the province, and they participated in a mock parliament, which was, and give them an idea of how Parliament operates. There was a speaker, there was somebody acting as a premier, there was somebody acting as a governor, and they were divided into, I think, 5 areas of concern: youth, religion, international affairs, and 2 others. And they were each of those people present, I think one person present had to do one of those topics and dealt with it from the point of discussing it and coming up with a resolution indicating how they felt about the topic. A similar thing would take place in Gibson Wood this April, the 16th, 17th, and 18th. And the young people coming from all over the province, I understand we have had a very good response so far. All the arrangements have been made for that, so that they would be included in it, and they would be given an opportunity to take part in this discussion, which would give them an idea of how, first of all, how Parliament works, and how do you go about presenting positive information in terms of convincing someone that you know what you're talking about. So these are some of the aspects of the things that they would learn from the Youth Parliament. Of course, the fact that they come together and react with each other and talk to each other and laugh at each other and tease each other. Of course, that in itself is a whole learning experience by itself. So those are the things that would naturally come out of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, it seems that during the month that just with the programs that we've been discussing, that you're going to be moving quite a few people around the province, and that there's quite a bit of organization that's involved. We mentioned at the beginning of the program that you were the project coordinator. You must have others that are working with you in terms of organizing all of these activities.
Well, yes, like I mentioned before, the councillors in the various communities, they are involved in it. In addition to that, we have a planning committee comprised of Ms. Theresa Half-Kenny from Amherst, Mrs. Gloria Day from Tracadie, and there are 6 young people, 2 from each of those communities, Tracadie, Amherst, and New Glasgow, along with Mrs. Laura McLean and myself, who make up the Central Planning Committee. So we make most of the arrangement, and then we ask people in other areas to take up the slack, to help us in certain aspects and do certain things for us. Of course, the buff staff is always there as resource, and we can always fall back on them to ask for their help and their support, and they have been very good in helping us with the program. So it seems like a lot of work, but when we share it around and when we distribute it between the people who are involved, it makes it so much easier, and everybody's doing their own little bit to see that the program is a success.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, there's usually a financial implication with everything that one does. I was surprised to learn from talking to you earlier that the amount of money that's involved in carrying out all these programs is actually quite small. How are you able to carry out the program with such little cost?
Well, one of the things that we started out last year, which we're doing this year, is the fact that a number of the communities are looking to some extent after their own financial end of the bargain in terms of preparing the kids and giving them some pocket change and this sort of thing. The kids themselves are involved in fundraising. I know in the Guysborough County area, they're involved in fundraising as well as in Amherst to get money for themselves. Various community groups supported them last year, like the Pursuers of New Glasgow last year. They were responsible to give to the interaction some buttons, which they had black interaction, nicely done and so on, and they presented that to the young people. The Black United Front, of course, is taken a large part of the funding of this project, and they are coming up with some bucks to make sure that the project goes through. And we have got some assistance from the Ministry of Recreation and Culture. They have come up with some money to further assist us in making the project a success. So those are the areas from which our finances come, and we're very grateful to all those who have chipped in and give us the sort of money to make the project feasible at this point.
Mm-hmm. Would it be fair to say that the greater proportion of the financial contribution is made by the participants themselves in the program?
Yes, I think it would be fair to say that they are really working towards, I know especially I keep going back to the Amherst and New Glasgow area, and the Tracadie, Guysborough area rather, and that is because they're people on the planning committee. But I know that they are really going out and coming up with a lot of money to make this project a success. Otherwise, I'm sure it would not be as feasible as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Well, now in the remaining moments that we have in today's program, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what you consider to be the impact of these activities. We're now going into the second year of programming. You've had 1 year of experience. I'd like to get some idea from you of what you think the impact of the programming has been, and perhaps go on to ask you a bit about what your hopes are for the Black History Month in the future. First of all, with the impact, what do you think the effect of the program?
The effect of the program, like I mentioned before, I can see in terms of young people trying to keep up that relationship which they started last year in Amherst. They've definitely made an effort to keep that up. We have had a number of queries and questions and inquiries requesting information on Black history, Black people, Black achievements and so on and things like that. I don't know particularly if it has to do so much with the need for the information to write the essays or the public speaking, and perhaps we'd hope that this is also spilling over into their academic in school in terms of writing up projects and so on. But we've had tremendous amount of inquiries about that sort of thing. Also, we have had also the fact that a number of communities are now thinking in terms of community groups, youth groups within their communities. And to me, this is a very positive thing, and I think this is something which, personally, I feel felt is long overdue, and I'm really pleased about this aspect of it, because I feel that that's where our young people are going to be starting to learn how to conduct themselves, how to think positively about themselves, how to feel good about themselves by getting involved in youth groups and trying to do things for themselves, of course with the help of adults wherever possible. So those are, I could see, some of the short-term aspects of the results of this Black Interaction and whole Black History Month project.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, we talked a week or so ago with David Woods, who is the cultural coordinator at the Black United Front, and he outlined a range of activities that the Black United Front is attempting to get involved in terms of this area of cultural development. The Black History Month is one aspect of that. What are your hopes for the Black History Month in the future?
Well, I would hope that in the future we can improve on the Black History Month. Like, for example, last year we only had the 3 activities, and the Black Interaction was really should have been the activity that was carried out between New Glasgow and Amherst as their local activity. What happened is that because of the constraints of time, it became a separate activity. What we had done this year is sort of pull it back into Black History Month and made it the climax of these activities. Now, that's a step forward. I would hope that after this Black Interaction in May, and depending on the evaluation we get from the young people taking part in the program, that we will be able to include other aspects of Black history, culture, and other activities which we can hope to make it, something really larger every year and improve upon it, correct our errors and our mistakes, and make it really bit more positive and open it up to more students. For example, last year we had 80 participants at the Black Interaction. This year we're hoping to have approximately 120. Maybe the day would come when we would probably have to have 2 Black Interactions, split the province in 2 areas and this sort of thing. I've heard people talking about a youth pageant. I don't want to use the word beauty because that's not the intention, but a pageant for our young people to express themselves in terms of confidence and pose and intelligence and this sort of thing. So that's another aspect of it which perhaps may find its way into Black History Month next year. But there's some talk about that. So as the ideas come up, we will try to look at them and see how we can sort of integrate them into our program and build on it step by step, brick by brick, until we get a program which perhaps everyone can participate in.
Mm-hmm. Well, James, we want to wish you the best of luck with this year's activities, and we look forward to having you back next year when we'll talk about the activities for the 3rd annual Black History Month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching our program. Join us next week, won't you? For people who are not many. But it's accepted. Hello, welcome to Black Horizons. I'm your host, Hamid Rasheed. A lot of behind-the-scenes work goes into making a championship boxing match a success. In today's program, we'll talk about what's involved. We're very fortunate to have a very special guest on our program today in the person of the Vice President and Promotions Coordinator for Top Rank Incorporated. I have the pleasure of interviewing on today's program Brother Muhammad Akbar Muhammad. Brother Muhammad, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome to the Black Horizons program.
Pleasure being here.
Now, for Muslims, you and I both know that the names are very special things for Muslims. I thought it might be interesting to our viewers if I could have you explain how you come to have the name Muhammad Akbar Muhammad.
Well, my name came about because of really two reasons. One reason was that I was a follower of Elijah Muhammad from 1971 on. And at the time of his death, and at that point I was beginning to think about a name change, I seen fit that because I was very appreciative of the work that he had done, not only nationally but in terms of my own personal growth, that I thought it would just be fitting that I choose the name Muhammad, naming myself after him. And on the other hand, I was very appreciative of the values and the principles and the corrections that his son had made in terms of the things that he had said. So here we had two Muhammads, and at the time I thought the only name appropriate to place in the middle as a middle name would be Akbar. So that's how it came about.
Right. Well, now you're the Vice President and Promotions Coordinator with Top Rank Incorporated, and I'm sure all of our viewers who are knowledgeable about boxing know about Top Rank Incorporated. But for those perhaps who don't follow the fight scene that closely, could you tell us what Top Rank Incorporated is and the kind of staffing that you have and so on?
Well, our staffing is made up of a number of people in the office. We have working directly out of the office a publicity man who's responsible for dissemination of publicity and make sure that each fight that we're promoting is publicized. We also have two matchmakers, one whom, if anyone have been keeping up with boxing over a period of time, Teddy Brenner, who was the head matchmaker. Teddy Brenner, he ran Madison Square Garden for over 20 years. That was in the period of the great fights, as they call them then, which we always have arguments because I feel as though this is the area of the great fights.
Yeah.
He has a assistant who works along with him. Then we have a bookkeeper, two office secretaries, a president who's Mike Malice, and also the chairman of the board who's Bob Arrow.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are some of the big fights that you've promoted in the recent past?
In the recent past, we have a long list of credits. We can go all the way back to the Thriller in Manila, Ali and Frazier. We promoted the majority of Muhammad Ali's fights. Last June, June 20th, that's 2 Junes back.
Yes.
The first Leonard and Duran fight that took place in Montreal.
Yes.
And we have on the drawing board now another great fight that we're also bringing into Canada, which is a very stable, incredible match with Marvin Hagler, who's the current middleweight champion. He'll be fighting Tommy Hearns.
Right. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit later about that Hearns and Hagler fight. But how now in this work, in your work in promotions, you're the vice president of Top Rank Incorporated and so on. How did you get involved with Top Rank, or how did you get involved in the promotion business?
Well, it's a long story. I would have to go all the way back to 7 years old, and that was my first entry into boxing. At the time, I was a kid, 7 years old, and I used to work in a shoe shine parlor for a guy who was an ex-fighter. And at times I think he would have flashbacks. And I could think, to alleviate a lot of his frustration that he had, he figured he would try to deposit something in me. So he wanted to make a fighter out of me. So I did amateur boxing that continued up until probably 1969, 1970. And at that point, I knew I didn't want to be a fighter because every place you get hit, it hurts.
Yes, indeed.
And so I knew I didn't want to be a fighter. And we had another gentleman who was a great promoter in the New Jersey area, Willie Gilsenberg, and 13, 14-year-old kid, I used to act as a gopher for him, running around, taking care of the little menial jobs at his fights. So that was the aspect of the business that I really became attached to. And 1974, I began an association with Muhammad Ali at the time, and that was my entry into, big-time promotional boxing.
Right. And have you been with the Top Rank Incorporated since 74?
Top Rank, I started in 74 working directly with Ali. '75, I began working for Don King as a consultant, and that led to a promotion company which was set up by myself and a couple other gentlemen. We began promoting fights in New Jersey. Now, my association with Aram began in 1975. At the time, we used to handle a lot of the closed circuit outlets for the fights that Top Rank was promoting at the time. And with Cornerstone, that lasted until 1978, which Aram at that point, he gave me an offer, and the offer at the time, it was, one I couldn't refuse. And that began, my working relationship, with Top Rank. And during that period also, we were just beginning a program. It's a weekly boxing show that's seen by over 15 million viewers. It's called Top Rank Boxing on ESPN. And he gave me the full responsibility of running that show, and right now it's probably the most successful running ongoing program in boxing. So, the opportunity was there, and it's something I just couldn't turn down.
Right. Now, this boxing program, this is live boxing. It's on a weekly live boxing program.
This is live boxing. I compare it to, years ago, I think it was every fighter's dream to fight at Madison Square Garden. I think they started out, they wanted to get to the Garden. And right now, in the last 2 years, I think it's every fighter's dream to fight on ESPN, to fight on Top Rank Boxing. And it's a live program. It's usually consists of like 7 bouts. People that we've started out there first gotten their first initial recognition. A lot of those fighters are now world-class fighters. Dwight Braxton, who his start began on ESPN, he's now current WBC light heavyweight champion. Also, Frank Fletcher, who's now rated number 3 in the world and is in line for a title shot at Hagler. And also another gentleman, Roger Stafford, who in April, in May 21st, he'll be fighting Leonard for the welterweight title. So it's been a great vehicle for boxers, unknown qualities, and it's a great exposure.
Right. Well, now, we said in our introduction that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in terms of making a fight a success, and I guess you are involved with a lot of that. Could you help us understand what's involved? What kinds of things do you get involved in terms of setting up the fight, all of the logistical aspects and so on?
Well, it's difficult in a sense. The first thing you have to do, you have to get in your mind, two people that you want to fight, all right? And that's where the matchmaker's involved. He comes up with the attraction. He says, all right, these 2 guys, they'll make a good fight. It'll be a good attraction. It'll, the financial returns will be good. It'll be good for everybody worthwhile. So you come up with these 2 guys. Now, the next step is to convince these guys that they should fight each other. And once you convince these guys, you work out the logistics in terms of dollars, what this guy's going to be paid, what this guy's going to be paid, you get a contract. All right, now the next step with that contract, you'll take that contract to a network, to a TV network. And with them, you sit down, you say, okay, well, I have this attraction here. Here's the contracts to prove that I have it. What do you want to pay for it? Then you work out something with them. Now, once you get all of these ends tied, the next step is just you're looking for a venue. You're looking for a place to hold the fight. And right now, the most attractive situations that you have in terms of presenting a match is either Las Vegas or Atlantic City. That's because of the gambling casinos. And, with the casinos there, they'll pay a site fee just to bring that attraction in, because naturally, not only is it going to give them the national exposure they're looking for, but at the same time, they're able to bring in the high rollers. Those are the people who are going to come in and watch the fight, yes, and then go, I'm not going to say win, lose their money at the, yes, tables. Yes. So that's the step. That's the whole step. Now you have this whole attraction together. Now, this is where I come in at. Then I'll come in, and from that point on, my whole responsibility is to make this thing happen. I have the fighters on one hand, the TV on the other hand, and the casino or the site on the other hand. And I just got to bring all of this together and make that fight happen on a particular date. So it involves, coordinating the hotel rooms, coordinating the fighters' training schedules, coordinating a certain aspect of the press, coordinating the setup of the arena. It's just a whole drawn-out thing. A lot of detailed things, right, that you have to stay on top of and be on top of to make it really happen.
Right. Well, now, in terms of the promoter's relationship to fighters, are there some fighters who are tied to certain promoters? Like, for example, does Top Rank have certain fighters who have agreements only to fight with promotions put on by Top Rank, or is this something that's permissible?
Yeah. I think the thing is, if you're going to spend money and your time and bringing a fighter to a point where his name is recognized, and at the same time you make him a marketable commodity where he has marquee value. Naturally, you just don't want to bring him to that point and he's in a position now to walk away. So you tend to contract him for X amount of fights. Maybe it's 2-3 fights, or maybe over the period of years. So then that way you have a viable working relationship, and both people are tied in. So everybody will work to their maximum to make an effort, make it a good situation.
So each major promoter, would have a sort of a stable of fighters that he would promote their fights and their careers and so on.
I would say so.
Is it I guess it's a highly competitive business, isn't it?
Oh, very highly competitive business. You got some promoters that are very visible, that the emphasis are on themselves other than the fighter. Our whole outlook is that the fighters are what's making this happen, and I think all the attention should really be focused on the fighters. This is why, like a lot of people, they'll get the impression that one particular promoter is probably the #1 promoter in the world. I don't want to mention this gentleman's name, but if anyone has ever seen his hairstyle, they know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But overall, I would have to ask that gentleman to take a back seat to Top Rank, because just last year alone, in terms of TV fights, this other gentleman, he promoted 14 TV fights, which was the second of anybody in the world, and we promoted 91.
Right.
But our emphasis is more so on the promotion of the fighters. It's more of a business aspect, and we think that the fighters deserve the recognition, and that's who should get all the attention, because they're making it happen anyway.
Right. Well, I know you didn't want to mention the name, but I for those people who may not be boxing fans, you're talking about Don King, of course. Don King Promotions. When we think of promotions,
Well, Avis tries harder. Avis tries harder than hers.
When we think about promotions, particularly championship promotions, normally the Top Rank is usually comes up, or the name of Don King. Are there other major promoters in addition to those two? Are there?
I would say there are promoters now that are making good inroads into boxing. You go back 5 years ago, and your major TV dates, they were usually tied in by either Top Rank or Don King. But at this point, you have main events. They were responsible for the Leonard Hearns fight. You have another gentleman by the name of Murad Muhammad. He's no relation to me, but he's been promoting, had a good hold on the light heavyweight title that he's been promoting with Braxton, with Saad Muhammad. You also have another gentleman, Butch Lewis. Michael Spinks. So you're getting other people now that are getting the opportunity to promote fights and build up their own stable of fighters. It's a very, very, very competitive business.
Right. Well, how important is a key fighter to the success of a promotion company like Ali, for example? I mean, whenever you had Ali, you had an attraction. How important is it to getting a fighter of that kind of a caliber, like a Spinks or an Ali or something like that in your camp? I guess it's crucial to the success of the promotion.
Well, it's very crucial, because once you can establish that, and you can get a fighter that's that his name means magic at the box office, it puts you in a position, not only in a financial position where you're able to go out to secure other fighters, but it also puts you in a position where fighters will say, hey, this guy here, he's fighting for X promoter, and I seen the type of job that he's done for me. Maybe that can also happen if I'm tied with this promoter. So it tends to attract other fighters your way, and give you a stronger leverage of going out, negotiating situations, not just with other fighters, but with TV, and also it gives you a stronger position overall, because if this guy is bringing in, if he can have you going to the bank, then what's going to happen is that the networks are competing with each other. Naturally, they're going to want to have him fighting on their networks, so it keeps everything constantly going up. So it's a good overall for the promoter.
Right. Right. Now, Leonard, he's not with Top Rank.
Well, Leonard is a free agent.
He's a free agent.
He's not tied into any particular promoter. In essence, Leonard is his own promoter. Right. His situation is very unique in that right now he's the biggest draw in boxing, yes. And I don't think he needs a promoter more so. But it's always advantageous to a promoter just to have Leonard, because with a situation with Leonard, the dollars that he's going to be able to have flowing, just 10% of those dollars would be much more than just say if you were promoting another guy and you had a bigger percentage of the promotion.
Right. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're working, or you're promoting the Hagler Hearns fight, which is going to be should be a dynamite fight.
Should be a dynamite
in
fight.
Windsor, Ontario, in May. How did that fight get together in a place like Windsor, Ontario? You don't normally think about Windsor, Ontario as being the venue for a championship fight.
Yeah. See, what you understand one thing about boxing, is a very peculiar business.
Yeah.
It's a business that can change with the twinkling of an eye. Things, whole situation, complex of the situation could change. What happened here was that this fight came about because Hearns wanted to fight Hagler. I was told by Hearns' manager, Emmanuel Stewart, that him and Tommy was riding in a cab ride, and they was contemplating who could they fight at this point because he'd just been defeated by Leonard. Now he has to start all over. Yeah. And he was thinking of a lesser name. Let's start all over. Let's build from A, B, C, D. And Tommy told him that, hey, the fight I want to fight, the fighter I would like to fight right now is Marvin Hagler. So he said he was kind of shocked because that was a big jump up in terms of weight class and everything. But he was very adamant about it. That was the guy he wanted to fight. So they came to us and says, hey, can you put together my guy with Hagler? Mm-hmm. So that was the initial start. Now, the way it winds up in Ontario was that, number one, Hearns wanted to fight in Detroit at the Silverdome.
That's his hometown, of course.
Sure. Hagler, being the champion, there was no way he was going to go to Detroit to fight Tommy Hearns. You figure he's going in, he won't have the edge. So the next logical place, which has been the neutral grounds for most big fights, have been Las Vegas. So Las Vegas came into the picture. And at the same time that it looked like we had the fight nailed down for Las Vegas, Tommy Hearns' mother comes into the picture. And, she actually, I would assume she convinced her son that it wasn't in his best interest to go to Las Vegas and fight because of the way the weather there, the way the climate was. And she felt in her own mind that in the last rounds of the Leonard fight, because of the weather and the altitude and everything, it weakened him, and that's what brought about the outcome where Leonard stood as the victor. So she stepped in. So it was a situation now that we have to not only negotiate with the manager, but now we had to satisfy someone else, which was Tommy's mother. And we couldn't fight in Detroit, we couldn't fight in Vegas, and the next step was we were looking for still a neutral site. So Windsor, Ontario came into the picture. The name came up. We went to Detroit. The Detroit people were satisfied with it. Hagler's people were satisfied with Windsor, which it was close enough to Detroit, but yet farther enough away from Detroit. So it became the neutral ground for the fight. So I think it's good for Canada overall.
Right. Well, I was kind of surprised that Hagler's camp would agree, because really anybody who knows the locale knows that Windsor and Detroit are just within spitting distance of each other, and probably the judges and everything else will come from Detroit, will they not?
No, the judges.
Well, of course, the judges.
The judges and referee, I'm quite sure, will be all neutral officials.
Yes.
And fighting in Canada, the fight would not come under the jurisdiction where if the fight had been in Detroit, it would have came under the jurisdiction of the Michigan Athletic Commission. So now it comes under the jurisdiction of the Canadian Commission. So naturally, a lot of complexes change where everyone would have been vying for the edge. Had the fight been in Detroit, I think everything is neutral because the Canadian officials, they're just going to look at it as two individual fighters. I don't think they have an interest in either party.
Right. Well, now, in terms of the actual site of the fight itself, I think there were two sites that were originally being considered. One was at the university, which was a larger site, and then ultimately it ended up in the second site, which I forget the name of it, but it's a little bit smaller.
Yes, the hockey arena there.
Right.
And
what was behind the decision to hold it in a smaller arena?
The small arena was brought about in terms of, you got a situation that you may call it, say a building has a lot of leaks.
Right.
By that you mean that there's a lot of security that you have to bring in to prevent, so many entrances and exits out of this place.
Oh, yes.
So, it's a little more closed in. The people there, they're used to dealing with professionals, and we were able to situate and accommodate the seating where we only have 7,000 seats there. So in essence, with a fight of this magnitude, it's a shortage of seats. But at the same time, we were able to scale the building that the numbers in terms of dollars we were able to get at the gate would still be equivalent to what we would have did at the arena. So naturally, if you create a shortage and it's something that everyone wants to see, that'll be eaten up much quicker than as opposed to at the university.
So from from the consumer's point of view, it may lessen his chance of getting in, but from the promoter's point of view, it makes it a more marketable kind of thing.
I think it makes it marketable overall because not only do you have only just 7,000 seats for such a great fight, but at the same time, you have people, across the world who's going to be doing closed circuit TV. The fight is going to be televised over Select TV, which is a pay-per-view. It's subscription TV. It's pay-per-view, and so naturally, once these 7,000 seats are sold out and the interest is still there, and I'm quite sure people are going to want to see the fight. Either they're going to have to, subscribe to pay-per-view, or they're going to have to buy a ticket to go out to the local theater.
Well, I'd say next to a fight involving Sugar Ray Leonard, this is probably the next most exciting match that could be put together. These two, this Hagler is devastating, and Hearns certainly has been doing well, and with his two recent middleweight fights, so it has all the ingredients that one would need in terms of making a.
Well, this fight here, what this fight actually does is actually puts, to a degree, puts pressure on Leonard, because Leonard at this point I think needs a big fight, and with Hearns and Hagler, the winner is going to be his, he's going to be the logical opponent, and the winner will be the middleweight champion of the world, whether it's Hagler or Hearns, who comes out the victor will be the middleweight champion of the world, and I think that's the title that Leonard craves for, because if Leonard is to go down in history as being one of the great fighters, and right now, I think that pound for pound, he is the best fighter right now in the world. If he's able to have his name listed alongside of Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robertson and Benny Leonard, all of these great fighters, that middleweight title, it would secure it all.
He needs Hagler.
He needs the middleweight title. He would definitely his place in history would be secured.
Right. Well, now I want to get into another area now, and that is this whole, you have the WBA on the one hand and the WBC on the other hand, the two world boxing, major boxing organizations. Does this present any kind of difficulty for a person like yourself or for a promoter in terms of trying to make matches and so on? I mean, particularly today where we have, like split titles in so many other divisions.
Well, a lot of people may disagree with me, but, my opinion is that I think it's good for boxing. In a lot of ways, you find that it's hard to identify who's champion of which division, but at the same time, what this does with 23 champions, it actually creates more money. And you look at the background of where most fighters come from. Most fighters come from, a background where they didn't have it too good. They had to struggle. So if you can get 23 people, in a position where they're able to, stimulate, six figures, for themselves, and that's broken down into a trainer, management, what have you. I think overall it's good for boxing because you find that in football, even in baseball, the big thing is the Super Bowl in football. The big thing is the World Series in baseball. And I think after a period of time, if a champion, two champions holding the same title in the same weight division, if they have held on to a title long enough, take Leonard and Hearns, for example. I mean, that was the Super Bowl.
Yes.
That was the World Series because you had two guys with two titles, which the public demanded, okay, you've proven yourself along your course long enough. Now let's bring it together. And I think the impact of what that fight had, overall, I think it was bigger than a World Series or bigger than a Super Bowl. So in that aspect, I think is good for boxing. And these are the political bodies. And you deal with life. The whole politics of life is being able to adjust yourself to the politics that's at hand. And if a fighter, if his management is good, they're going to be able to deal with the politics and get the fighter in the position that he wants to be. I mean, that's the whole everyday of life is politics. So people say, well, this organization, what they're doing is not correct, and what that organization is doing is not correct. But no one has come up with a better solution.
Well, how do we get in a situation where we have the WBA and the WBC? How do we get the two bodies in the first instance?
Well, the WBC, in essence, I think it's a little more stronger organization.
Is that the older of the two?
Yeah. It's made up of over 91 countries. Countries that actually make up the WBC. At the same time, the formation of the WBA, I think it comes from, I may be mistaken on this point, but I believe it comes from the old NBA, which was the National Boxing Association, and it was a break off from that point. And you find that at the time that they were formed, you had another situation going on in boxing where it was a monopoly, so to speak. And I'm going back, a little back further into the 60s when this big antitrust suit was brought up against, the International Boxing Club.
Yes.
So that came in to try to offset WBA, to offset that group, which with their fights was, more so coming under the body and the leadership of now, what is it, WBC. So, it's just a competitive thing, and everybody's trying to iron out their own situations. So, I don't see any harm in it.
Right. Well, in the few minutes or so that we have left remaining in our program, what brings you to Halifax?
Well, our reason to visit here for Halifax, for the last month or so, we've been, corresponding and communicating quite a bit with Murray Sleep,
Yes.
who's he's on the commission here in Canada, and also
Yes.
Buddy Day, and they have been constantly, hey, we need a title fight. We'd like to get another title fight here, because like 2 years ago, this past May, we did a title fight here. The timing was wrong. The day was wrong.
That's the Saad Muhammad.
Muhammad and Louis
heavyweight
Pergot.
championship.
Everything was wrong, because number one, it was on a Sunday in the afternoon, so we didn't draw that many people, and it was on Mother's Day, and I think everybody just chose to stay home with their mothers and cater to their mothers instead of coming out to a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So in an aspect, I think that we owe Halifax, a fight where we can come in and actually do it right. And more so, our ideas would be not to put a fight on national TV, but more so to do the fight on either pay-per-view or cable TV, and that would enable us to go take fighting back to where it belongs, which is not really in the afternoons, but fighting should be at night in prime time, and that would give us the vehicle to be able to do that. So that was my reason for coming up here, to discuss this with them, also to look at the arenas and just get more so a feel of the town, and what would be better to present here in terms of a title fight.
How's it look? Can we expect something, possibly?
Well, what I'm going to do right now, within the next 2 weeks, I think we'll arrive at a conclusion. I'll be reporting back to Bob Arum and giving him my opinions in terms of what I think. And I think before the year's out, we can expect a title fight here in Halifax.
Well, let's hope that something does come off. We'd be interested in seeing the world caliber fight take place in Halifax.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've lost our time for today, and we have to wrap our program up. We want to thank you for watching Black Horizons. Join us next week, won't you?